This conference will now be recorded.
Let me, oops. All right, good morning. This is Jeffrey Poppin. It's showing up on the screen, right, Valerie?
Yes, you're good.
Good. All right, thanks. Yeah, just a little bit of technical assistance here this morning. I'm out of town, and so I've got a different setup than I'm normally using, but I think we're good to go. Last week we had a little bit of problem that I wasn't able to hear people who were speaking up. So please, if you want to share with us, have a question, feel free to unmute your mic and speak up. And if that doesn't seem to be working, just use the chat box and we'll try to get to you as promptly as possible. And I apologize for anybody last week who wanted to share and wasn't able to because of our technical problems. Okay, many of you have seen the slide. If you've taken my programs before, this is just what you need to do if you would like continuing education credit for today. That is given through Kern Regional Center, and it's good for both the Regional Center training when you have your quality assurance reviews and also for community care licensing. And you must attend the entire webinar to obtain CEUs. Today, we're going to go about an hour and a half. You must identify yourself at the beginning of the presentation on the screen or in the chat. If more than one person is on the screen or on the telephone, if you called in, we need to know who everyone is that wants credit. So if you've got two people sitting there at the screen and you only have one name on the what's going on to go to the meeting, then we only give the one credit because we don't know who the other person is. Okay, you need to send to Irene, who is the administrative assistant on this project, a summary of 3 things that you learned today. And that can be bullet points, it can be a paragraph, something that we know that you were attentive, listening there the whole time. And that gives is our way of knowing that you were actively listening to what was being said. And then finally, we ask that you, if you are going to be asking for credit and sending something to Irene, requesting it, that you do that within 30 days. So that way we can handle all of this promptly. So we appreciate that. Coming up are a number of trainings through the Council on Quality Leadership. It's referred to as CQL. Some of you who have been on these before have seen this slide, and some of you have taken some of the CQL classes. CQL is a national accreditation organization, probably the number one provider of education and accreditation for services for persons with developmental disabilities. They also do work with the mental health community as well, accrediting that. This grant has contracted with them, and we have a series of presentations which run 4 hours. Excellent if you've attended any, you know that not only do they give you presentations, they give you little videos throughout, and then they give you the reference so that if you wanted to show the video to staff where you work or share with others, you can do that. They also give you a series of references, links that you can provide a lot of information. So it's excellent presenters giving you lots of information, and it's free. And if you were to take these classes through their website, normally they run about $100 a class. And they also have a 1-week training class that's called the POM, and that we offered earlier this year. If there's interest in it, we're going to be looking at the possibility of offering it again in the fall or next spring. And that's also an excellent training opportunity if you have the time to spend 5 days to get that, and you then get certified in that tool to use it. If you want to be a trainer of it, then you got to go to additional courses. Okay, coming up on May 14th, Everyone Has Rights. This is a program that has been offered once before, and it's an excellent program. I saw it the last time. And one of the big takeaways from that is if you're working with individuals who have some sort of challenging behaviors or have sort of oppositional at times, the more that you listen to them and give them the opportunity to exercise their rights, the less challenging behavior you seem to have. And they've got some pretty strong data to show that that's the case. May 30th and September 19th, community building connections. And this is a really important concept that we're just now starting to look at. I mean, we have providers who say, okay, yeah, we take the individuals in our program out into the community. So we do community services and we do things, but taking people out into the community and having people being part of the community are not the same thing. And what we're really looking at is trying to develop a community for people. So, as an example, a number of years ago, I worked with an individual who moved into a residential care facility and really did not want to go to the church that the provider and the other residents went to. And so we worked with a local pastor, got somebody from the church to come pick this person up, take him to the services. He became part of that congregation and would be involved with activities. Sometimes would pick him up for Bible study on another evening. And so that's becoming part of that community, not going on an outing to that church. It's becoming part of that church. The 13th of June, we have Embracing the Dignity of Risk. This is becoming more and more an important area. And one of the challenges that sometimes we have is that as we offer individuals more community opportunity, as that becomes more available to people, because that's what the rules say that we're supposed to be doing, what happens if something bad happens? If they get harmed in the community, they get exploited, they're financially taken advantage of. How do we weigh giving people more opportunity with the potential for risk? And this is a really good class in talking about ways that you can set up a positive relationship when it comes to this whole risk management situation. Whoops, there was a glitch there because it doesn't give it gives June 25th and September 10th, but that doesn't say the class, so I must have somehow that must have dropped off. I apologize for that. We'll find out which class that is and get back to you. July 9th, we have Exploring Communication. This was recently held, and this has got a lot to do, especially if you have clients who don't use language as their primary way of communicating. So you have people who, because of their cognitive level, don't use a lot of verbal expressions or expressive or receptive language issues, persons who maybe are deaf and use sign, people who use communication systems, etc. So a good course if you have individuals that you're working with where there are communication
Sorry,
challenges.
Jeff, really quick thought. September 25th, that is Principles of Person-Centered Thinking.
Okay. So that's coming up then. Then Exploring Communication. So we talked about that. The 3 E's, the Foundation for Informed Choice, education, exposure, and what's the third one, Valerie? Do you remember?
Education, exposure, and experience.
Experience, that's right. So how do you go about when you're looking at giving people the opportunity to do new things, education, experience, and exposure to those opportunities? when I was still employed by Bakersfield ARC, and we were looking to do more community based services rather than site-based services. And we started asking the individual served, where would you like to go? In many cases, what we heard were places that they knew. So like Walmart and Valley Plaza. So it was a matter of educating people, exposing them, and giving people opportunities to do other things. And this is a really good course in talking about that. And finally, person-centered thinking. That's what we're going to be talking about today, and that's sort of the cornerstone of home and community-based waiver services, is that they say that all individual program plans need to be person-centered. And then, oops, I was creating slides here that I didn't want. Okay, then some of you last year were fortunate enough to be able to attend a day-long presentation by Dr. Tom Pomerantz. He is a nationally recognized authority, trainer, clinician, consultant in the field of services for people with disabilities. Over the last 57 years, Tom has conducted thousands of seminars and programs throughout the United States and Canada. His audience praises his ability to combine information, humor, passion, storytelling. So this is just an excellent, excellent opportunity to have one of the premier speakers on services to persons of intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we're bringing him to Bakersfield. This is on another grant. This is not the Bakersfield ARC grant, but Bakersfield ARC has generously cooperated and been involved in this in the background on this one. Anyways, on June 10th and 11th, the main topic will be on the shift from individuals being consumers to be able to be producers. So the issue of employment. And those are the same presentation. So you can sign up for it either on June 10th or you can sign up on June 11th. But that one will be specifically on employment related issues. And California is an employment first state, which says that young adults coming out of the high school system should be looking at employment before they look at sheltered type settings or day activity type programs. So the real push now is for employment for the individuals that we serve, just like you and I. The big push for us is to be employed. On June 12th, which is a Wednesday, we will be having 2 4-hour presentations. And these presentations will be for the individuals served. So if you're a provider of service and you would like some of your residents, some of your day program individuals to attend this session, we'd love to have you. And then also families of persons of IDD are also invited to those sessions. There will be 2 sessions for that one. The ones on June 10th, 11th, and 13th will go from 9 in the morning to 4:30 in the afternoon and include a half an hour for lunch. And lunch is provided. So it's a free presentation. And they used to, what's the joke? There's no free lunch. Well, yes, there is. In this case, there is a free lunch. And then on June 12th, those seminars will be 9 to 1 because they're 4 hours long. And then the other one will be from 5 in the evening to 9 in the evening. And the one from 5 to 9 in the evening will have simultaneous Spanish translation. So if you're working with individuals or families who are monolingual Spanish speaking or bilingual but prefer to speak or in Spanish, Tom's presentation will be simultaneously translated by an excellent translator. So again, I would encourage you to sign up for these. If you go to the most recent newsletter that just came out a couple of weeks ago. Information on the sign up is there. We will be sending out more information. Again, I've just written a flyer, which we'll be sending out probably in the next couple of days, which will have all the information on all these. All of these will take place at the Kern Regional Center at 3200 North Select Avenue. And we'll be in the Malibu room. And like I said, in the morning, there will be snacks and coffee. There'll be lunch. And in the afternoon, there'll be water available. So you're well taken care of and given a really excellent presentation. So mark those dates on your calendar. Again, either the June 10th and 11th, if you're interested in vocational employment related topic, and then the 13th, if you just want a overview of home and community based waiver, and that's an excellent one too. That's the one that Tom did last year. So people who went to that one last year probably don't need to go again to the June 13th, but they may well want to go to the 10th and 11th. And like I say, for individuals that you're providing services to and their families, the 12th would be an excellent presentation to attend. So I encourage you to mark that on your calendars. Okay, many of you have had Regional Center out to your program recently to do a home and community-based waiver compliance review. Kern Regional Center is required by the Department of Developmental Services to have timelines of how many facilities they've evaluated, and they had to have 25% done by February 29th, 50% by April 30th, 75% by June, and then 100% by August. And they then have to send those on to the Department of Developmental Services, and the Department of Developmental Services up in Sacramento has to submit it to the federal government by December 31st of 2024. As of this week, out of about 180 providers, approximately 110 have been done. So there's about 70 facilities, group homes, small family homes, day activity centers, supported employment that still have not been done. Regional Center at this point is looking at contracting out the rest of those assessments, and myself and a few other people are involved with the grant that will probably be doing future assessments between now and August 30th. If you do get an assessment and there are challenges in your facility where they find things that aren't in compliance, in many cases you'll get a fix-it ticket, kind of like if you get pulled over and one of your tail lights is out and they tell you get a new tail light and then let us know. That's what would happen in most cases. If you can fix it right there on the spot, great, that's even better. If it doesn't look like it can be fixed immediately, you will be put into a corrective action plan, given 30 days to get that corrected. If not in 30 days, then you start going into sanctions. Sanctions can include non-referral, all the way up to devendorization of your facility. And so it's going to be fairly serious. The federal government is saying that in order for the federal government to continue to fund programs that are under the home and community-based waiver, everybody has to meet these requirements. And so if you're not meeting the requirements, the federal government won't fund it. California doesn't want to fund it all by itself. And so the rules are either you get there or you're not going to be involved. And there's a lot of steps involved before you would get to that point. And in most cases, I think most people can come into compliance. And so we're hopeful that's the case. Okay. What are we dealing with? Okay. We talk about the new look of how we're really trying to encourage people to have more choices about their life, to be more engaged in their communities, and they're having as purposeful, meaningful, and fulfilling lives as possible. But there are some challenges out there, and these are system challenges. These are not challenges that are necessarily in your small family home or your day program, but they're challenges that are system wide. Okay, our service system is sort of disjointed, compartmentalized programs. So if you look down at the bottom, there are 4 boxes there. Okay, in the first box, you have education services. So in most cases, that's K through 12. There are some post-secondary education programs like the program out at Taft Community College, the TIL program, and there are others throughout the state that are really modeling this idea of a college opportunity for individuals. There are employment services in the greater Bakersfield area. There's about 4 or 5 providers that are doing different types of employment related services, and that can be supported employment, a group of 2 or 3 individuals working at a site. So, like, for example, if you're driving down to LA and you stop at the rest stop at Lebec, the Bakersfield ARC is the one who maintains that site, the restrooms, the grounds, the vending machines, etc. And they have a crew of normally 3 people at each rest stop and a coach that's with them the whole time. You also have internships, paid internships, where clients go to work in a business and their first year up to 10 months is paid for by a grant. You have people who are in supported employment, where their employment is a job coach. And then you have competitive integrated employment. So there are a lot of different employment services, but they're over here. What about the individual who, let's say, gets a job and gets a job coach to help them on the job, but that job's 10 hours a week? What do we do with the rest of the week? And that's where, like, the example of maybe having them also go to day services, which is the next box down the thing, and do both. That's sort of a new challenge that we're running into with the regional center. How do we get funding for more than one program during the week? But day services are, like non-employment related services focusing on community, personal hygiene, other skills necessary for greater independence. And then finally, we have residential services, which are, again, run the gambit, everything from, independent living services or supported living services where someone's living in their own apartment and getting someone coming in and assisting them, all the way to family homes, group homes, foster family agencies, intermediate care facilities. There's a whole series of types of residential facilities. And these are all sort of split off. They're not all integrated in terms of what they're doing. Programs are built around funding, not people. So we look at purchase of services and how, is a purchase of service been completed? And, for those of you who are, get a new referral to your program or to your home, well, they tell you the person can't start until you go into the system and on the computer and find out that there's a authorized purchase for that individual. So it's about the dollars. Service plans are based on openings, spots available. So, as it stands right now, there is a shortage of services available for individuals. So, and a lot of that has to do with the funding for the system. That if you have challenges finding DSPs and keeping those DSPs, then you can't take new referrals. If the rates that they offer you for your residential facility are such that you can't really make a go of it, or you as the owner administrator are putting in, lots and lots of hours. So if you really were to look at what your hourly wages, it would probably be below minimum wage because that's the only way you can make it work. People aren't developing a lot of new resources. So there tends to be more and more of a wait list for many of the services. If you have, let's say, for example, a residential facility and you have vacancies, then you need to really work with the center to find out what is it about your facility that you're not getting the referrals, because there are very few resources out there, and most programs are full or on waiting lists, and so it's not so much about what the individual hopes and dreams are, but what's available. Programs are focused on attendance, not outcomes or personal goals. As it stands right now, a program like Bakersfield ARC is they get paid based on the individual being there. So for every day that the individual attends the program, they get paid. If the individual doesn't show up that day, they don't get paid. And so programs, that sort of sets the incentive. There is currently some attempts to really start looking at outcomes and personal goals, so that, wait a minute, what was in the IPP? What is this program supposed to be accomplishing? And are they doing that? And so if they are accomplishing what is in the personal goals, then that's how their payment is. There was something in the final year of the increase, which was supposed to go into effect July 1 of this year. The governor proposed in January to postpone it a year. The legislature so far said no, we want it to go into effect January 1. But they were talking about giving people 90 cents on a dollar, and the other 10% being provided based on meeting objectives. So we may start seeing some changes to move towards outcomes and personal goals for funding rather than just showing up. And then a lot of times program supports do not encourage independence. That there's historically we've been told that what our responsibility is to kind of take care of the individual, make sure that they're we have activities for them throughout the day, that they're in a safe environment, etc. And that is not necessarily the focus of independence, which is really the direction that the home and community-based waiver wants us to be all about. When I hit this one key, it just okay. The person-centered planning requirements, the rules that we're now looking at for writing IPPs that are about the individual, come from the Lanterman Act in a revision in 1992, which required that all individual program plans be person-centered. The Lanterman Act goes back to the 1970s. Frank Lanterman was a member of the legislature who got some of the legislation passed. The first regional centers were formed in, I think, 1964. And as they progressed and as the law changed, it became known as the Lanterman Act. And in the 1992 revision, person-centered planning was added. Home and community-based waiver came out in 2014 and is based on all individual planning being person-centered. So basically, when we talk about the fact that the IPP that we write for someone needs to be person-centered. It's required both in California state law and in the federal regulations both. So there's a lot behind why we need to do this change. Darn it. The person-centered focus is on individual interests, capacities, and dreams. This method is different from traditional service-driven plans and emphasizes the person's unique needs and aspirations. I can't tell you how many times I sat in individual planning meetings where the discussion was about the individual's deficits, what they couldn't do, or where they were having problems. And many times people would talk about the individual in third person. So, Johnny can't necessarily complete toileting and needs assistance or a reminder to wipe himself after he has a bowel movement. Susie needs assistance with her menses, and you're saying that right in front of the individual and not respecting their privacy, their dignity, talking with them rather than about them. And so we really want to look at what are strengths. And if we're looking at our goal is to try to make it so this person can be more independent, more functional in terms of the skills that they want to do, let's look at what their unique needs are and their aspirations. Where do they want to go? What can we do to help this person along? What is a person-centered plan? Person-centered planning is a process that can be used with people of all ages and abilities and backgrounds. It works for individuals with IDD. If you go out and take a look at service delivery systems, the mental health system is now using person-centered planning. The services for the elderly are using person-centered planning. So persons for physical challenges. So this is becoming the model for basically all types of service coordination, case management type services that are being provided. Unlike other planning approaches, person-centered focus on the individual's interests, strengths, and what they do well. It shifts away from solely addressing needs or limitations. When I first started in developmental services, it was 1977. So you can do the math and figure out how old I am. But anyways, at that point, services were done under what was called a problem-oriented record. The abbreviation, we have IPP, PCP, yada yada. This was POR, problem-oriented record. And what we would do is we would have statements about the client. Susie doesn't have anything to do during the day. And then the solution was put Susie into a day program. Billy has difficulty with his self-hygiene and needs assistance. Residential care facility will provide daily living skills assistance for Johnny. So it was all based on what the problems were. And then what we were trying to do was one of three things. We were trying to decrease the amount of that particular challenge. We were trying to maintain where the person was currently, or we were trying to make some progress so that this would become less of a problem. But the focus was on problem. 1978, the system changed. That was when the first individual program plans came out. And it was now supposed to be, instead of looking at a problem, we look at what the unique needs of the individual are. The reality was that if you go back and look at what was being written back then, it was pretty cookie cutter. I mean, like we take a cookie cutter and you've got the dough here, and you stamp it, you stamp it, you stamp it, you stamp it, and you end up with 6 cookies that all look identical. That's kind of how individual uh, program plans were written. You stamp this client's plan, you stamp this client, and the only changes where one might say the Jones group home, the next one might say the Smith family care home, but pretty much everything was written the same. So now we want to go to the process that involves creating a vision for the future and identifying steps to working towards that vision. It's not about fitting into the system, which is what we used to do. It's about creating a plan that truly reflects the person. So where do we want to take this individual based off of where the uniqueness that is them? The planning group, often called Circle of Support, includes those who know the person best and are committed to exploring possibilities together. Now, one of the things that I sometimes get a little bit concerned about, and it still is a challenge in many cases, is when the team ends up meeting and we're talking about the goals and objectives with the individual that we're going to develop for the following year. In many cases, it's the service coordinator, the facility administrator. It's people who are sort of the higher ups sitting with the client, and the direct support professionals who are the ones who are spending 8 hours a day with that individual or more, aren't necessarily always at the table. And I happen to think, if nothing else, we at least want to get their input into this process. So if it's just us professionals sitting around, even if we're now moving towards person-centered, which is looking at the uniqueness of that individual, we want to have the most reliable and closest to what's really occurring as part of that process. Common everyday language used instead of technical jargon, including understanding that is, or language that is understood. We oftentimes speak in language that if like, how many of you have been to like a party or something and people say, what do you do? Well, I develop individual program plans that are person-centered plan for, they don't have a clue of what you're talking about. And then we also use all kinds of abbreviations, CMS, HCBS, PCP. I sometimes call it alphabet soup, in the way we talk. And we want to make sure that's understood, and especially by the individual who's being served. Do they really understand what this planning process is involved? And for many of the individuals we serve, the planning process hasn't always been user friendly. And especially those folks who have had like intimate details about them being discussed in third person table and what have you. So if you think back to your childhood, and if you got called to the principal's office or some sort of special planning meeting, it was not a pleasant experience in most cases. I think that for many of our clients, that going to the planning team meeting sort of brings back, okay, so what are they going to talk about me? What are they going to say? What did I do wrong? The plan considers how to develop relationships, community connections, and individual tailored support. So we're really getting away from what's not right, what isn't happening, those sort of things, and looking at, okay, so how can we make things more connected for that person with the community, with activities, with who they're all about. Now, the federal government, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which in our alphabet soup is called CMS, says the following. The goals of person-centered services planning is to empower individuals to build the life they choose or aspire to at any age across their lifespan. So when we talk about person-centered planning, although most of you on this call are providing services to adults, this person-centered planning is for infants even, and youngsters and school-age children, and teenagers, so and then seniors as well. So it's across the whole lifespan. We're always looking at what that individual would like to see or aspire towards. It is a way to assist people who need home and community-based services to construct and describe what they want and need to bring purpose to their life. So we're working with people who obviously, because of their intellectual or developmental disability, need to have the services that we're providing. So how do we bring more purpose to their life, the direction that they would like to see? And then person-centered service plans must reflect the services and supports that are important for the individual to meet the needs identified through an assessment of functional needs, as well as what is important to the individual with regards to preference for the delivery of such services and supports. Now, just a minute ago, I showed a slide that said we should be using plain language. Now, doesn't that sound like governmentese? I mean, well, basically what it's saying is the services that we're providing for people, the way we support the people that we're serving, should be based off of, we looked at this individual, we talked to the individual, we talked to others in this person's environment and found out what their needs are. Functionally, what are they able to currently do for themselves, and what's important to them, and where do we want to go to deliver the services and supports that they would like to see. Now, at the bottom of that page, for those of you who want to look stuff up, these are the actual federal regulations, 42 CFR sections 441.301, and then there's some other sections too that are listed there. Just like we here in California, oftentimes talk about the Lanterman Act, Title 17, the California Code of Regulations and then also Title 22, the licensing regulations. These are the federal, the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. So just FYI, there's a set of rules out there at the federal level. Most of us never see those because they're sort of behind the scenes. The day-to-day stuff that you do in your program, in your home, etc., fall much more likely to fall under the Title 17 or Title 22 or the Lanterman Act. These are more for like the states. So California needs to make sure that the services that are being provided through the regional center by the vendors meet these federal requirements. So just as an FYI. Okay, so let's talk about when we say something is meaningful. So when we talk about meaningful work, meaningful day services, meaningful relationships, what are we talking about? Full of meaning, significant, having purpose or value, purposeful, significant, a meaningful wink, a meaningful choice. So this is the definition so we want to make sure that it's significant for that person. It's got purpose and value. What makes life meaningful? Um, Here's a partial list, and I'm going to ask you all if you can come up with anything additional that you think that I missed here. Employment. We all, uh, everyone on the seminar works in the system, so we've got employment, and we do that for money and for self worth. So, for those of you who have serve individuals who get a paycheck, many of them are very proud of the fact that they're working, getting funds, that they're involved in something, they're engaged with other people, engagement in the community. They're part of something. We all want to be part of a bigger picture. That's kind of like built into what being a human being is all about. You know, as I've mentioned before, there are persons who are that are served who the only other adults they're with who aren't other individuals served are paid staff. So there's nobody in their life who wants to be with them who isn't either in the same program, group home facility, or so that everybody else is staff. So we want to try to get away from that and get people involved in community. And another example, I mentioned the example of getting involved in a congregation earlier. Another example, a number of years ago, I was involved with a service club, the Bakersfield Exchange Club. And like other service clubs are, they all have sort of charities and activities that they're involved with, and ours was child abuse prevention. But I went to my fellow members and said, "Hey, what if we have someone who has IDD as a member of our organization?" Oh, sure, go for it. So we went to one of the employment um, service providers and said, "Hey, do you have somebody who wants to?" Because we're all employed and we get together as a community and do activities. Somebody that would be available on Tuesday at lunchtime to come and with his meetings and also be involved with like evening and weekend activities. They located an individual, and he then became part of the organization and was an active member, participated in all the activities, was came to lunches most weeks, was on committees, and so he was engaged in his community. He was giving back. What also is makes life meaningful is relationships. Do we have family and friends? I can't remember how many times I saw a situation where an adult went into a residential type of setting, and the parents then sort of checked out. The brothers and sisters checked out. So maybe the individual had contact with them by phone once in a while, or they would come by for birthdays and holidays. But there really wasn't a significant relationship with their family member once they went into the residential type settings. And we don't want that. We want to try to encourage family, unless there's a situation where maybe the person was placed because of abuse and neglect situations in their other living arrangement, and then in which case we might want to look at that differently. But for the most part, we want to try to encourage relationships as part of a meaningful life, a happy home, a sanctuary. We want people to have a place that they can call their own. The new regulations for residential services include things related to the ability to lock your door, and so you have a private area that's yours to put what you want on the walls of your room, to be able to go and get food and snacks from the refrigerator, the pantry, etc., to have visitors. So that's all part of happy home, and your home. Uh, Health is important. We all want to maintain our health, and there's a lot of literature out there that shows that people with disabilities oftentimes don't get the same level of health care. And I mentioned, I believe, in last week's Community of Practice about a situation recently where a gentleman who was in their 60s went to the doctor, and the doctor didn't do some of the wellness checks for men. They didn't do a digital exam of his prostate, didn't recommend a colonoscopy, because they just felt like that was the client wouldn't go along with it, and didn't even try to find out, just made the decision independently that wasn't something that the client needs. So we want to make sure that our people get the health care they need. The ability to make choices, to have options, to be able to say what they wanted to do, um, and meaningful choices. We use the term meaningful. When I first went to work for the state back in 1977, we had a motor pool. And so in the morning, if I needed to take a car out to go visit with the individuals or families or group homes that I was going to visit, they said, "Oh yeah, you can have a choice of any car on the lot." Well, there were 4 cars, and they were all the same model. The only difference was the color. So, well, okay, I'll take the green one today. Well, it's not really a choice. Freedom and independence. Okay, big issues, especially for a lot of times historically the thinking was because someone has cognitive disabilities, delays, their maturity level isn't really the same as their chronological age, etc., that they should be more restricted and provided with more supervision and support. And now we need to start looking at how we can develop more freedom and independence. And again, this is predicated on the individual and what we can do for that individual as part of their planning process. And then playing a valued role. People want to feel like they have value. I sort of look back on my career and say, look I did all these things, I helped all these people, and it makes me feel like I have value. I have my wife and my children and my activities and my memberships, and those all add value to who I am, and also give me a purpose. Now, just for a second here, and Valerie, help me out here. I'd like to open it up and see if anything else that people can think of that makes their lives meaningful.
I'd say it's not specifically notated here, but I remember you did talk about it. Religion and being in part of a religious organization is very important. And like I said, I know it's not notated, but you did touch on it a little bit.
Right. Well, that would be under some of the others choices and options, but but you're right. Religion's is a huge for many people. There are also some people who feel that are not religious and don't want to be made to be having to go. And I've seen small family care homes and said this is a home, a Baptist home, and so everybody who lives here goes with us to the Baptist church. And somebody may say, well, but I'm a Catholic, so we want to make sure that we're respecting people's
And I'd
freedom.
also say another one would probably be education. I know
Uh-huh.
some people are really smart and they'd want to continue on, after the regular basic education that we get, which is K through 12, and they're
Right.
interested in things such as college and so forth. And a lot of them, they hit a wall because
Right.
certain people don't think that they're capable.
Anyone who reaches who has a high school diploma is 18 or is 18 and a half years of age. There's a couple other criteria, but they're very liberal and can go to a community college and can take classes. There are services that are available through a regional center called Tailored Day Services that can assist somebody if they want to go to college and may help them with their navigating the college, taking notes, doing homework, etc. So that is an option And if somebody sees that in the past, where sometimes people said, "Oh no, that's not an option for you," post-secondary education isn't what it's all about, or we can get you into a very um, sort of niche program like what we have out at Taft College, which is an excellent opportunity out there, but it's sort of limited, and you have to go full time and live there in the program. Um, but more and more, we're starting to see more of that as an option as well. Any other things that people see as that makes things meaningful for them? Okay, we'll move on then. Person-centered, person-driven. Here we have a group of individuals in the workplace uh, built around the individual. What do they want to do or learn? Okay, so ask people, what is it? I remember one time years ago, I was at a meeting when person-centered planning first was coming out, and it was another professional. I was kind of surprised that he would say this. He says, "Oh yeah, if I go to a meeting and somebody tells me that they want to be an astronaut, well, that's not ever going to happen. They're developmentally disabled. They're not going." Well, first of all, I don't know that there's any reason why it theoretically couldn't happen, but even assuming if that was the case, maybe we can find an opportunity for that individual that has to do with space. Maybe they can do volunteer work at the museum in the space exhibit, or maybe a company here in town that makes parts that then go into aircraft. They could get a job in that setting. So instead of sort of just outright rejecting the person saying this is what I want to do, seeing how we can take that interest in space and flying or whatever, and move them in the direction that they would really like to be. And then what do you want to do and learn? What do you need to learn and be successful? Okay, we don't all learn the same ways. I'm a much more visual learner than I am a written learner. So I found out, like when I was in high school and college, that if I'm trying to take extensive notes while the teacher is giving the presentation, like I'm giving a presentation today, and if any of you are taking notes, I would fall behind. I was writing, trying to make sure I got that point. And by the time I got that one down, I was like 3 points behind where the teacher was. So I wasn't a really good learner that way. But looking at it, sort of making a mental photograph, I was much more a visual learner. So we all learn differently. And some people learn better orally, hearing things that are said to them. We have both expressive language, how we speak, which is what I'm doing right now, is expressive. Receptive language, you're listening to me, hopefully. And if you are, then, are you taking in what I'm saying? So maybe the best way for learning for you is hearing it. And so that's one of the things we want to do, is try to figure out what's the best way for the individual that we're providing those services to. Dreams and 3-year goals. What is the plan to get there? We for a number of years, IPPs have had what they call long-range goals in them, but they're really not. The client would like to live independent. Okay, well, that's a good goal. But what are we doing to get them to? What between now and 3 years from now? What are we going to do along the way towards that individual's goal of where they would like to be? I noticed a number of years ago that when my now adult children were growing up, people would ask them, "So what do you want to do when you grow up?" And then I started noticing that nobody was asking our disabled individuals, the folks of IDD, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's sort of the assumption was that somehow they were not either going to grow up, or that they were not a person, or they weren't going to be in a vocational or volunteer or some purposeful role. And that's really where we want to look at the dreams and try to figure out ways that we can go with people. Um, and then home-based in my neighborhood. So people want to be part of a community, part of a neighborhood, have a home that they can call their own, and that in some cases is with family, friends. It could be in their own apartment with supports. It can be in a family care home. It can be in a small family home. It can be foster family, um, group home, intermediate care. There's a number of different residential options. The vast majority of clients who receive services from Kern Regional Center, adult clients, live in their family home, or living with either parents or are living with siblings, aunts, uncles, etc. Interesting phenomenon. It's sort of a little bit off task here, but there are a number of people who we sometimes refer to as baby boomers. You know, those individuals that were born in the 1950s and 1960s who have always lived with their parents. Their parents are now in their 80s and 90s, because these individuals are now in their 60s or getting into their early 70s and still living at home. The system really hasn't been preparing for what's going to happen when those parents of those individuals get to the point where they're no longer able to provide the level of service for their sons or daughters, because they're in need of services themselves, the services and supports. And that, again, would be a good example of, if we're looking at 3-year goals or long range goals, where is this individual going to reside in the future? And if the parents of the individual are aging, or the individual says, I don't really want to live with my family forever, are we making plans and goals that accomplish what the individual is all about? This is a tool that's called the Positive Personal Profile, and we'll make this available on our website. Positive Personal Profile. What are my dreams? What are my life experiences? What is important to me? What do I value? What are my current skills, interests, and what do I want to learn? So this is a tool, and this one here is on Andrew. Now, what I did was I took this one and I blew it up, and this is a bit hard to read because it sort of distorted as I blew it up. But just taking a look at this to the best we can. So what would this client or individual like? Get a job, move into my own apartment, meet a girlfriend, learn to play the saxophone. What are my talents, skills, and knowledge? I know a lot about music and genres, especially show tunes, current pop artists, and country. Very strong likes lifting weights, but does not like to sweat. Takes a lot of computer classes, similar with a lot of familiar with a lot of office equipment. It's a little hard to read. Computers, faxes, copiers. Like working with machines and tools. Learn quickly. So so we're getting a little bit to know about what this client's all about, because we've looked about what their long range, what they would like to do. Like a girlfriend, like to play the saxophone, wants to live in his own apartment. It's pretty good when it comes to music, and knows some skills that are related to office equipment. Values. What do you value? I value being respected by others, being smart, being popular, having friends, um, environmental preferences. Uh, I like a clean, well organized setting, casual, hip places, but not loud, not nothing too professional or boring, quiet but friendly. Work experience, and then it talks about where this person's worked in the past. Specific challenges, need assistance when it comes to being flexible. So if the person has to change from one activity to another activity, they have difficulty with that. Need explanations when things change. Sometimes get angry when things are not going my way. Need reminders to stay focused. Initiative is a concern. So again, we're getting a bigger picture of who the person's all about. Okay, going over here, learning styles. Verbal direction should be clear and concise. So again, this person's more of a verbal learner. Model new task is preferred. So show him what you want him to do. So a command like, oh, go clean your room is probably not a good idea with this individual, but saying, okay, we want you to do these steps and then go with them maybe into their room with their permission and show them the different things that you would like them to do. So modeling it, showing it for them. Can follow written directions if he is familiar with the task, does not like change. So that's something to be careful about. If you're going to be changing things around, the routines and stuff needs to be introduced and explained why there's the changes. May need reminders if expected to do things differently. So if you want this person to do a different way and you showed it to them, you may have to then remind them later on. They say, this is what we're doing. Positive personal traits: punctual, honest, candid, smart, detail organization, strong self-advocate, good sense of humor, likes a good joke. So, so we're talking about who this person is. Dislikes chaotic, loud places. So if they're living in a residential facility and at times there's a lot of chaos, like at dinner time or other times, that's not going to be conducive for that individual. Being interrupted, being told what to do, being patronized, being told, being treated disrespectfully, condescending, people ask too many questions or interrupt me, so that not treating that person like an individual. They have IDD, so their view isn't really that important. I can interrupt them and tell them what to do. Not with this gentleman. He would not like that. Support system, family. In this case, the mom and dad are very supportive. And then solutions and accommodations, structured task, constant routine, concrete, concise instruction, direct feedback. So hopefully you have a little bit better idea of who this gentleman is. And so that when you're making a plan with him or assisting him in making his plan, you're sort of a reporter and you help facilitate what that's all about. These are all things you take into consideration. So the old days, when a plan was written that said, George will live at the Smith family home, and George will go to the ABC adult day service, and George's health will be maintained. Well, it's a personal plan. It's talking about three things that are all occurring for George, but it's not person-centered. It's about events that are going to happen and places that he's going to go to. But it's not about what he would like to see going on in his life. So now that we know more about the person's values, their history, what are their challenges, how they learn, what they like, what they dislike, that gives us a lot more information in terms of assisting them with moving towards the direction that they would like to see. Historically, community activities and day services were an alternative for people not interested or able to work. So if somebody didn't want to work or wasn't or what we consider to be not able, a lot of advocates now don't believe that anyone can't work, that everyone is able to work. Seen as outings or field trips in large groups. So we would take day services or activities would be take a bus full of people on a field trip. Activities to fill downtime. So no contracts. So they weren't really doing any work sort of stuff. So I've gone out to facilities in the past, day type services where people were coloring crayons and stuff. Now, some of you might say, well, but that's come back, and there are books that some people buy, and they do coloring, and that can be an adult activity. Yeah, it can be if it's an adult type book, but these were like children's, like cartoon images and stuff that you might see a child doing. So we want to make sure that if there's an activity, again, that it's meaningful, purposeful, and not just feeling downtime. Special events like, oh, we're going to have I still think every year that and it's very popular, so I'm sort of swimming against the tide here, but special people day at the fair. That's sort of the old school way of thinking about persons who have disabilities. Recreational opportunities or a chance to socialize with friends. So we want to think beyond just taking people out to socialize and do recreation. What's the meaning of this? Why is it important to this individual? How is this part of their 3-year plan of where they want to go? And then also, historically, things were planned and directed by staff. So a new individual comes into a day program, and what are they told? Well, from your bus will get here probably about 8:20. From 8:20 to 8:40, it's you sort of socialized in the recreation hall. Then at 9 o'clock we start doing this activity. And hang on 1 second. Excuse me a second. Hi, I'm still.
Are you guys checking out today's lifestyle?
Yeah.
Jeff, you're going to have to unmute yourself.
Okay, now let me get back in here.
All right, there you are.
And are my slides still up, or let me go
It
get
just went down right now.
Okay, let me get them back up here. All right, there we go. Again, you can hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. I wonder what happened. Thank you for. So there was a situation where the individual didn't want to do the 2 o'clock class. And we started talking. And I said, well, maybe that's not something that they're interested in, because everybody at 2 o'clock went to this particular class. And this person would disappear sometimes, would act out in the class, would, do stuff to make it very clear that this wasn't what they were all about. But that was everybody went to the 2 o'clock class. So it was a matter of changing so that this person was given a different alternative for what they could do during that period of time. Let me see here. Purpose of community living supports. So when we look at supporting people, we want to be exploring and discovering, building new skills, developing social and professional connections, fostering inclusion, engagement in community and meaningful ways, gaining independence, self-confidence in the community setting, augmenting part-time work schedules and meaningful non-work activities, and encouraging the idea of working and creating a pathway to community integrated employment. So a different look. We want to be not just filling a day, we want to be exploring and discovering new things. So like we were mentioning earlier about the 3 E's of giving people new alternatives, taking people to different stores, providing them with different activities, doing different recreational things than what they've done before. So if the people in your program are saying we like bowling and we want to go the bowling alley, well, maybe taking them to a different activity during the day that can also be a fun thing, and that's something that they may end up enjoying. Building new skills, and again, trying to figure out with that person. So the example I mentioned earlier about the person who said they wanted to be the astronaut. And so, like I said, the museum, maybe a job working in, a plant that does aerospace parts, and finding new ways to enhance that person's ability for themselves. Connections are all about what we do. So the more we can get people involved in community activities and new places where they can meet people and be part of a community, that's what it's really all about. And that's meaningful. And as people get more involved in the community, they will be more self-confident. They'll be able to do more for themselves. Augment part-time work schedule with meaningful non-work activities, and encourage the idea of working and creating a pathway to community integrated employment. Okay, just a couple more slides here. Focus on the individual. The person is at the center of the planning process. Their interests, dreams, and capacities guide the plan. So we've talked about this throughout our presentation this morning. Inclusion, everyone has a contribution to make. So we don't look at someone and say, oh, because of their level of disability, it's all about protecting them and taking care of them or whatever. No, what can they add, what value can they add to everything that we do? And realistic goals. The plan looks beyond the present and envisions what life would be like in the future. It acknowledges that some goals may take years to achieve. So again, we want to be realistic about what we're doing. Choice and decision making. The person making decisions about their life, they choose who to participate in the planning. Now, with the planning team meeting, if the person is an adult and they're not conserved, they can decide who they want at their meeting. So if they say, I want my parents, I don't want my parents, I want this staff person there, but I don't want this person's staff there. As far as the coordinator from the regional center goes, the way the Lanterman law, the law here in California says that at the time of the annual review, no coordinator shall continue unless all the parties agree to that. So if the client or the other party say, but no, we don't want this individual continuing on as the service coordinator, and I take that back. If the individual served doesn't want that person to continue, not all the parties, they can make that choice at their who's involved in their planning team meeting. The individual can also decide where they want their meeting. Now, historically, meetings take place at the day activity center, the work site, the home, but the client might say, I want it at Starbucks or the library or the park, and it's their meeting. They can choose where they want their meeting. Community participation, the plan explores ways to engage in community life. And again, that's not community outings. It's engagement in the community, becoming part of a community. Okay, it's 11:21, and I'll wrap it up with just one or two more slides. But are there any questions that anyone has today? Okay, so this will be the last slide then. Developing a personal history. Share past events in the person's life, background, critical events, relationships. That's where that plan that we just went over a few minutes ago is really helpful. The quality of life, explore community, participation, rights, respect, competency. Identifying supports, determine what supports are needed to achieve the person's vision. Create an action plan. So all these steps are part of where do we go from here. And unfortunately, as it stands right now, when it comes to the planning process, because of funding constraints, the regional center is got a limited time that they devote to developing the plan. So they may sit down with the individual served and yourselves and other programs that are involved and do the plan in an hour or an hour and a half. Well, how much planning time did they do to exploring the person's history, what they view as the quality of their life, where they're at now, where they would like to go, and then identifying supports that determine where the person is going, and then creating a plan to do that. And that's really where we really need to look to the future. And you as a provider can be doing some of that stuff because it's not going to happen if it's not done by you all. All right, any questions, concerns? Valerie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Anything that's out there that I'm missing?
Not that I remember. I think the main thing that we were discussing was the Tom's Pomeranz, and you touched on that already.
Okay.
But I think we're going to have more information coming up, right, in the next newsletter.
Oh yeah, I've developed the flyer. It's going to be. I'm just having it go through proofing and editing, and should be out within a couple of days.
And also, I want to emphasize for the CQL trainings. They're very helpful, very informative. The hands-on really helps. The instructors that are there, or the individuals, people that are teaching the classes, they're very knowledgeable. A lot of them been doing it for 20, 30 plus years, doing what they do, and they have a lot of experience. So if you're not already signed up for ones that you've missed, I highly suggest getting on there. Plus, you're going to receive CEUs if that's what you want and regarding that. But I feel like just taking the knowledge out of that specifically is the best thing. I would love to see our numbers get a little bit higher. We've had kind of a low attendance rate as of right now, but I really hope that you guys get to enjoy that and take advantage of those courses. It's usually about $75 to $100 a person. So, I mean, you're saving in that aspect. You just got to give a little bit of time of that. So, highly suggest that if you're interested, please sign on.
You can send your staff too. So if you have other people that are going to work for you or with you, they're more than welcome to attend those as well. The sign up for those, each one of those has an individual sign up. If you go and look at the April newsletter that I sent out. I believe it was in the second week of April that
It
it
was
came
April
out.
9th, I think we sent it out on.
Okay. All right. It has in there all the links to sign up for the classes. But if you don't have that and would like more information, get a hold of Valerie or Irene, and they can give you the specifics on how to sign up for any and all of those classes.
And I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has reached out, more information, even trying to see if you are on that newsletter or the news blast that goes out. I greatly appreciate the fact that you're taking the time out of your day, because it also shows the importance of your job with the individuals that you work with and for, that you're better providing service for them.
Well, thank you, Valerie. All right. Anything else anybody has? Okay, with that, then we'll end this session. Thank you all for coming on today, and I hope you found this informative.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.